What is the biggest lesson you learned throughout your hockey career?
I think for me, the biggest lesson that I learned was no adversity, no adversity you face isn't something you can overcome. I think that's the biggest thing. Like in moments, things feel like they're the end of the world or they're this huge issue. But when you sit back and think about it, you can handle everything that comes your way. Um, Now, if it's going to be easy, no. But I think that's like the most valuable thing is like how you can grow through adversity and from adversity.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so like a lot of athletes I feel like struggle with transitioning out of playing their sport. What's your advice on like transitioning out of playing like elite hockey and going
Yeah.
into new things?
Yeah. For me, I felt like I was very at peace with the transition. Like I made the decision on my terms to kind of be done playing. When the PHF um, folded and then the PWHL kind of happened, I had just moved out here to Minneapolis and I was like, I really like where I live and, I don't necessarily want to do distance again. And so for me, I kind of felt at peace with I know that the reason I fell in love with the game of hockey was because I was going to continue to be a part of it no matter, if it actually meant I was on the ice or not.
Mhm.
And so for me, transitioning to the coaching side, I say I'm on the ice more now than I was as a player.
Yeah.
I work like three different jobs, kind of all part time. But I'm on the ice 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Um, depending on the schedule. And I think for me, like finding a way to satisfy that like competitive edge that I had.
Mhm.
Um, I was really fortunate. Nadine Mazeral, who's the head coach at Ohio State, she told me once, she's like, you're going to be fine. You just have to find a way to satisfy, your competitiveness, whatever that may be. It may be picking up a hobby like pickleball. For me, wanting to coach, you find your competitive edge is fulfilled through, coaching and the outcomes of those games. And she's like, it can be draining when satisfying, your competitive edge relies on other people's performance, but at the end it's really rewarding.
Yeah, I feel like staying involved in the game too is super awesome. It's like you play your whole life. It's nice to still stay involved.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think that you can be involved in so many different ways. And so for me, I work at a school that has hockey kind of built into their schooling. And so kind of getting to be on the ice aspect, but also at the school and kind of see the balance of both. And then I coach high school. I coach in the Midwest Elite League, which is out here in Minnesota. I work for OS Hockey. I do some private lesson training on my own. So I'm kind of in it in all different aspects. So I found it kind of easy to transition. And my girlfriend plays for PWHL Minnesota. And so I'm able to kind of watch her play and, still feel like I'm, watching really high level hockey all the time. So I think that's kind of been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, super cool. What would you say your biggest advice is for young players?
My biggest advice for young players is don't compare your path to anybody else. I found that, even looking at kind of my own hockey career, my path was super unique. And, I was one of the kids who was fortunate enough to commit really early on in the recruiting process. And ultimately, like my first try, it didn't work out. So I think when you start kind of turning your head and looking at other people and what other people are doing, that's when you can get distracted from your ultimate goal. And so I think the biggest thing is like don't compare your path to wherever your end goal is to anyone else's because it's unique to each person.
I love that. I feel like that's huge.
Yeah, I've definitely seen like that be something that has helped people understand. Like I always say, you just have to stay the course, whatever way your course is going, you just have to stay with it because ultimately, like if you are destined to reach that goal that you've set, you will ultimately get there. It's just going to be maybe different from person to person.
Yes, absolutely. So, last question. This is kind of more about like you personally.
Mhm.
How have you gotten more comfortable like being your authentic self? And do you have any advice on like finding that confidence in who you are?
Yeah. I it wasn't always easy. I felt like when I was at Robert Morris, I had started to come to terms with like who I was as a person and what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And for me, ultimately, like going there and accepting, internally who I was and having almost that chance to start over with new people really allowed me to understand like these people are going to love me for who I am. And so being open about, maybe it's your sexuality or it's, you know, any like weird like quirks that people have, like just realizing that like if someone's going to judge you based on that, that's not necessarily someone you want to have in your life. And so I was really fortunate, my time at Robert Morris, I had amazing teammates, amazing friends. And not to say I didn't have amazing teammates at Clarkson or amazing friends at Clarkson. I think I just wasn't far enough along in the process to like understand really like who I wanted to be.
Mhm.
Um, and so I found that like you can't force yourself to be at any pace. You kind of just have to let it happen, naturally and realize that who you are is who you are. And that's kind of the beautiful part of life is, sometimes the struggle to figure out who you are, but then when you kind of get on the other side of that and realize like, okay, these people that I surround myself with on a daily basis love me because I am just me, and if
Yeah.
someone doesn't, then that's okay. Like it's okay. People come into your life, for reasons or lessons or chapters of your life. It doesn't mean everybody's meant to be there forever, but I think that was probably something I struggled the hardest with is I never understood, like friends kind of come and go because that wasn't how I was.
Mhm.
Um, but as you get older, they say your circle gets smaller, and I definitely agree with that and have kind of realized like, okay, these are my people, and that's really been something for me that's allowed me to kind of just become who I am and be okay with it and, enjoy life. And I always say like happiness isn't like a person or a place, it's a state of mind. And so you have to find a way to whenever you're in that state of mind, like what is it that's causing you to feel happy right now? And then just realize that that's if it's a person, you need to continue to surround yourself. If it's doing, I don't know, anything. But that state of mind doesn't need to be something that comes and goes.